Welcome to War Blog. This is going to be a quick one, I think. Because I think I've done that. We're going to have a look at this. This is the way behind, as you can see, but this is the Sunderbani Separation Line, Kashmir. And sort of happened sort of last weekish now. To some extent, I mean it's not over, but I think this particular part of it, so that they were basically shooting at each other a lot. There's Sunderbani, so it's the southern part of the line of contact. So this is Pakistan Kashmir, and this is India Kashmir. And down here we have Pakistan, so you should be able to follow the border. What we don't have here is a direct line with India, because this is all Kashmir here, India Kashmir. So essentially there isn't any. I was going to put in some objectives, and there are some objectives sort of named, but I'm so far behind I've sort of left it as it is really. To model this and what you would be doing is, well, you could sort of fire out the objectives if I put them in, but I haven't. So essentially they're firing at each other because the Article 370 was disposed of, and India administered Kashmir is now the equivalent of an Indian state or Indian province, and no longer autonomous. And it's sort of majority Muslim, whereas India is majority Indian, really. You know, whatever they are, Hindus, Sikhs, and the like. And so there's tension because of that, because Pakistan is more Muslim, and you know what will happen, we don't know. I mean, you know, I haven't really looked into it too much, but I think the idea is that Pakistan are saying that they're not going to sit by and sort of allow, you know, that to happen in its worst sense, saying that they're looking after the interests of the Muslim people of Kashmir, because obviously they consider Kashmir to be something that they have an interest in. I'm not fully familiar with the full extent of it all, but after India was whatever it was, you know, sort of after the Second World War, when states, the principalities were sort of liberated, or Kashmir was, I mean, we had Operation Polo for whatever that was, and other states joined together, but Kashmir was sort of contested between Pakistan and what became India, because at the time Pakistan and, you know, included Bangladesh before the other war. So essentially they've contested it since the whatever you call it, start of the Second World War, when India sort of became India, so to speak, and all the principalities, you know, went their own way. Kashmir sort of went its own way, but obviously they both, you know, Pakistan both made claims to it. Some weird stuff. So anyway, they've now renounced this Article 370. I don't know when it was created, but I presume it was, I think it was in the 60s or 70s after one of the wars, and it defined the autonomous nature of India, based in India, Kashmir, India-managed Kashmir, and so there's intense conflict across the line of control. The only other thing to maybe add onto that is that, and it's a bit like the Ukraine, it's one of these things that has been going on for years, but there's not much to talk about it. There's not much to say. Kashmir conflict. And it's really no different to I don't know, this one. 2015. I don't know why I said 2015 there and 2016 in the title. I'm sure it said 2016, no. 2016, 2015, didn't mind that. I don't see it saying 2016 anywhere else though. Anyway, not to worry. But basically, there's the line of control. So we're a slightly different place. And in this one, there's only artillery. So they're basically firing artillery at each other. So it's exactly the same thing. It's a bit more evenly matched. To be quite honest, I don't know why I couldn't find these counters. I'll have to maybe find them because it's better to use equal matches. In this one, I couldn't find them. So I gave India have got 3 4-1-3, so 1, 2, 3, whereas Pakistan have 4 3s. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that adds up to 12 on each side. But I suspect that having 4 units is better than 4 3s is better than having 3 4s. I suspect that because you've got to do more damage to take out these units. So it's one of those things we can argue about. So essentially, you've got the artillery exchange. So and both sides are claiming certain things. I'm not sure who's claiming what. But one side's claiming the others have used cluster bombs. So you can do your homework. It seems to be a bit quiet now, but you know they've got martial law and such in Kashmir now. I don't know how it's going to go because I just don't understand enough about it. But I don't think that it's going to be, you know, World War III. They keep sort of blurting out. And one little observation, it's not a main one, but obviously they keep harking on about them both being nuclear powers. I was looking at a video the other day, and it sort of was talking about, you know, how many nuclear weapons certain countries have, and I don't know what the numbers were, but I'm guessing here, but Pakistan had have about 30 nuclear weapons, and India have a similar number. America has 60,000. You know, so it does actually put it into perspective. Even if they fired all their weapons, how much damage could they do? Now, obviously, we know about Nagasaki and Hiroshima and that. But I was thinking, you know, I mean, how many of their 30 do they actually really have? Do they have more? Do they have less? Do they actually work? Do they even have the capability to fire them? I mean, you know, these are nations that are not entirely, you know, perfect. I mean, India, I would imagine, might have a better track record or better capability for these things, you know, because they do have a space program and they're putting things into space, which I always found odd, considering we're still sending them sort of third world aid. I'm not sure Pakistan are putting anything into space, so it could be that India would have the upper hand in any sort of nuclear strike, in the sense that their nuclear weapons are probably still working. I'm not sure, you know, I'm not saying the Pakistani ones aren't, but, you know, when you consider sort of, you know, they say, oh, well, they're both nuclear powers. Well, they're not nuclear powers in the same sense and scale as Russia and America are. You know, I mean, even Israel only has, you know, a similar number. I mean, you can probably Google it and find out. And so you've got to wonder how much damage they could probably do. I mean, they could probably do a lot of damage. You could probably do as much damage as you could possibly imagine with the ones that they have, you know, as opposed to, you know, 20 times the same amount of damage. I mean, it would just be unthinkable, really. But this whole idea that they're both nuclear powers, I think, is a bit overblown in that sense, because even if they fired all their nuclear weapons, there'd probably be still enough of both countries left for them to engage in, you know, protracted ground warfare, depending on how ill they got, how soon that happened. And I can't believe that either country would engage in nuclear warfare, because the punishment would be so severe from the Western nations, you know, China and Russia in particular, who would suffer all the fallout, and other nations. You know, I just couldn't see them doing it. It's the threat of nuclear war is slightly different between the threat of nuclear war between America and Russia, because it would be what they call MAD, mutually assured destruction. I mean, there would be no one to sort of say, you bad people, we're going to take your weapons away. And I would imagine that if it got heated and if it got stressed, that Russia, China, and America would probably join arms and carry out preemptive strikes on all missile facilities or whatever. I'm not saying they would. I'm just thinking off the cuff. But I was thinking that today. I was thinking, well, how serious could you, consider that to be? And I can't see either side really going that far. And I was reading elsewhere that Pakistan is a bit under pressure on all of this because they're finding it difficult to do a lot of things because their economy is in such a bad state. But also, traditionally, they've used insurgents and sort of basically terrorists, and they can't do that as readily because of all the pressure from the West. And it's interesting really because it's similar to sort of how these things have been done in the past anyway, where nation states have supported freedom fighters in one hand in one go, and now they're finding it difficult to actually wage war in Kashmir, the potential to wage war in Kashmir, because they can't go around sponsoring these irregular insurgents as readily. So I can't see it escalating, for all of those sorts of reasons. And that might be why India has done what they've done, but I don't know. I just don't really know. But anyway, they have been firing each other a little more incessantly. But as we know, they've been doing that anyway. That's what this scenario is about. And I'm not going. You could look up these engagements, and there's always something happening in Kashmir. Some sort of exchange. So there has to be quite a big one for it to warrant a scenario or a token scenario to represent what's ongoing, which is what this is. Just firing at each other. So here it's a bit more disjointed. I did put them on randomly. Now you're not allowed to cross the line of control. So once you know that, you sort of think, well, not much we can do really. We just wander along the line of control. I want to move maybe these guys down here. I'm not going to keep my artillery near the line of control. But we can patrol it. So let's fire at their artillery. 1.1 damage. We fire at their artillery there. 0.8. No effect. Right, so in that turn, well, they're obviously getting quite angry at that, so they're going to fire back. Well, do we want to fire back? Because we'd like to recover. See, he can recover. He hasn't been hit, so he's going to fire on that unit. One damage. I'm going to leave this one because I want him to recover. Oh no, he's not got any depression, so he can fire on this one as well. 0.2. Let's fire on these troops. Why not? Because we're not going to sit there and, So what you've got to realise is, in this scenario, what's happening is international outrage is being brewed up. These are not sort of, oh well, we didn't get anywhere. We've just been firing shells at these, and civilians have been caught in the blasts, and it's the threat of escalation, and that's what we're dealing with. But I'm just gonna play it to the extent that I can get to maybe this part here. So these units sort of meet up. So he's going to face him off. I'm going to cover him. I didn't mean to fire him. Oh well. So, now, what's happening here is the Indians now are going to engage. We can't attack them because we can't go across the line. But what we can do is an attrition roll, and this is what I think, I think you can sort of model it as what's happening. And you can sort of say, well, okay, well that was unsuccessful, but they're firing at each other with small arms. There are skirmishes across this line of control. It's not just artillery, there's also, shooting and firing, and so presumably they're just sort of getting sniper positions up or, strafing particular, observation points or passages or points. I don't know what's happening. You don't actually get a clear idea from anything about what's actually happening. The newspaper accounts are usually one side or the other, and focus on what the other side, what war crimes the other side is doing, as opposed to sort of, actually specifically stating what units are where and what units are being fired at. One of these articles does include some town names, etc., but I haven't got any further than that. But I'm not going to do any more. I just wanted to get these 2 points together. So obviously there's not much that they can do, but they would probably move all the way down here to help support this skirmish line. He might move up here, or he might move down there. So basically we've got one set facing there. These two should be facing each other, and these two should be facing each other there. So we've got, so he really should be moving sort of up here to take that, but maybe I should have put them all a little nearer. But because there's no deliberate, clear objective or intention with this, just to sort of give you an idea of the geography and sort of the nature of things, so you can sort of maybe have a think about what's happening. That's the main objective of this, and so that's pretty much as far as I'm going to go on that. I mean, you could sit there all day and just see who could actually destroy first unit, someone else's unit first, but that's not really what they're doing. So by this time you can sort of say, well, they're trying to calm the situation down, and there isn't really much being said about it at the moment, but I think it's sort of a hot cookie, one to keep an eye out for. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that, and speak to you later. Cheerio.